Hello everyone, welcome back to UPSC Warriors channel. This is Soundarya. So I hope you are all enjoying the Sunday, right? With good food and rest. Fine. So now we are going to study some of the important articles given in your Hindu newspaper, that is September 1 newspaper, where we are going to cover two important articles in detail. One is about your pension scheme and another one is about some of the recent discoveries with respect to the cancer treatment, right? And why we have to talk about this? Because these two articles are important for both your prelims as well as mains. And talking about the first article, we have a new pension scheme getting launched from April 1, 2025 called as Unified Pension Scheme. Okay, so this is something is going to replace the current existing pension scheme models, that is the old pension scheme and the national pension scheme. So why do we have this particular scheme getting launched, and what are the pros and cons that we have with respect to the current pension scheme? And if at all you have any of your family member working as the government employee and getting the pension, just go and ask them at what pension scheme they are entitled to and how do they feel about it, right? Okay, fine. So without much delay, let's get into the topic now. Okay, so before we begin, I would like to note, I would like all of you to note that this particular topic of your article is falling under this area of the syllabus, right? So this is GS2, social justice, and where we have this line reading government policies and interventions for development in various sectors and issues arising out of their design and implementation. So that is why it becomes important for us to cover this article in brief. Clear? Okay, so this is not just for mains, even in your prelims also you have this article fitting under this particular syllabus that reads current events of national importance. Clear? Fine. So what type of questions you may expect from this particular topic or the article? Again, you can have a number of questions, but this is just a very basic and sample question that I would like to give to you. Read who regulates and manages the national pension scheme investments. So either it is SBI or LIC or UTI or any of the above. So if you know the answer right now, please drop a message in the comment section, and if you don't know, don't worry, we are going to discuss all these things in the articles in the coming slides, right? So but then this is just a sample of the question, that is again a very easy question which you can find out from this particular article. Okay, so now before we begin, I would like to tell you that we are going to study this article into three different phases, right? So first we are going to discuss the current existing pension schemes, the pros, the cons, and second thing we are going to move towards this particular new unified pension scheme and then discuss how it is going to be different from the previous ones and why do we really have to opt for it, right? So this is all something you have to know from this article. So starting with the first pension schemes which are there in the place initially, talking about the old pension scheme and the national pension scheme. So please take a pen and paper and just write down whatever I am saying you, because these two schemes, if studied separately, I think you will have to spend so much of time, and I am here to make you spend less time and learn more. So please write along with me. So first we are going to see about old pension scheme. Clear? Old pension scheme. So this scheme was first in place before even this national pension scheme was introduced. Clear? So this was introduced after dropping this pension scheme model, and now in even this NPS is going to get replaced with the unified pension scheme. Okay, so we will start with old pension scheme. So in this old pension scheme, monthly pension is going to be given to the central government as well as the state government employees. So who are going to get pension? Both state government as well as central government employees. Fine. So how much are they going to get as the pension? They are going to get pension derived on the basis of their last drawn salary, okay, and the dearness allowance. So if I am the government employee and if I am going to get retired this month, after this month I will be getting my retirement money calculated on the basis of my last month's salary. So what was the last month's salary that I received? Based on that, my pension amount is going to be given to me. Okay. In addition, we will also consider the dearness allowances, which will be increased twice an year. So adding these two things, certain percentage of the dearness allowance and the last drawn salary is going to be given to me as a pension after retirement, and I'm going to enjoy it, right? So it is 50% of your last drawn salary plus the dearness allowance. Okay, so this is something, the the people will be given as a pension. Fine. And third question is, who is going to spend for it? Who is going to contribute to this amount? Do we have any people, employee paying certain sum of their salary to the corpus or to the pension fund? No. Nothing as that, nothing of that sort here. So the government is going to take the full responsibility. Government is going to make the full expenditure for your pension payments without getting any money from you. So here the government is going to make what? Contribution to this pension. So it is very clear, it is very simple, and it is also beneficial. If at all the dearness allowance is getting increased, my pension amount is also getting increased. But where do the problem is? Problem is not for us, the problem is for government. If the government has to continuously spend unsustainably on this expenditure of pension, then government is finding it very difficult to meet fiscal consolidation, and government is also incurring so much of losses, right? Provided the life expectancy is increased now. So I hope you all understand. So that is why government wanted to try another new pension schemes. Okay, so then the government came up with National Pension Scheme in 2004. Okay, so this National Pension Scheme was introduced in 2004 when this old pension scheme was dropped. Here what the government did is, okay, fine, so you are entitled to get pension here, monthly pension, that is fine, but this is something that is bothering me. See, I am not able to contribute to your pension fund fully, so please, out of this money, okay, the employees have to contribute 10% of their monthly salary every month to the pension fund. Okay, so 10% will be contributed by the employee, and the government says, now I will contribute about 14%. Okay, so 14% of the employee's monthly salary and the dearness allowance is going to be contributed by the government. Clear? So here the burden was placed on both the employee as well as the government. So it is not just the government contributing to this pension fund. In the earlier model, there was no corpus also, okay, that was formed to reduce the government liability. So here what the government is basically trying to do, trying to reduce its liability by asking the employees to contribute a little. Okay, fine. This is about the National Pension Scheme. And in the National Pension Scheme, we also have some of the advantages also. So what are the advantages? See, if I am contributing a particular sum of my salary every month for the pension fund, once I retire, okay, I will be able to get 60% of the corpus after retirement without any tax. Okay, so this is quite good, right? I will be able to get 60% without tax. Fine. Then what about the remaining 40% of my money which I spent? Fine. So the remaining 40% of your money is going to be invested in government bonds, going to be invested in bonds, debentures, etc. By whom? It is obviously not us, but we have the right to choose the professional fund investors. Professional fund investors like SBI, professional fund investors like LIC, who are regulated by the Pension Funds Regulatory and Development Authority. So we can choose any of these people on behalf of us to invest the remaining 40% of the money that you spent during your service after retirement. Okay, so when they are going to invest that money, that investment returns will be given to you as a monthly pension. Clear? So under this National Pension Scheme, in addition to this, what is the another setup that was made? Another setup made was to enable you to get 60% of the money immediately after retirement without any taxes, and get the remaining 40% in terms of investment returns every month as a pension. Clear? And again, the investment is going to be made by whom? Some trusted professional fund investors whom you choose and who are regulated by Pension Funds Regulatory and Development Authority. I hope so far things are clear, right? Okay, so I know that you all aspire to become civil servants and government employees. So what type of pension scheme you would like to have? Just think on that, right? After 50-60 years, what you will be doing probably. Now, so 60% is tax free. So what is this actually doing favor is that it is quite more flexible, and you have this option of controlling the funds that you are going to invest. Who would invest? I will be able to decide it. And then tax deductions are again given for your monthly contributions to this pension funds. In addition to the government employees, we have individuals, okay, even those who are self-employed, those who are unorganized sector workers, not a problem. Even NRIs are also eligible to contribute to this national pension scheme, where they will be getting their annuity after the retirement. Okay, as I told you, how the investments are going to be made from the amount they are contributing. So this is something quite good. But what is the problem in this? It has solved almost all the problems that old pension scheme had, right? But then the problem was this: the people are not happy to give 10% of their basic pay, because in the earlier model it was completely given by the government. So this is something which is not liked by the people. And second thing, when we talk about the investment returns, we know that is not going to be fixed, right? It is going to be variable based upon how the investments are actually working. So again, there is no fixed investment return. And in addition, this 40% of the investment return that you will be getting every month is subjected to tax. So this is something which is not doing good with respect to this national pension system, and people are demanding to have some reforms. It has become an electoral pressure, and then the government chose to completely replace this with the new unified pension scheme from next year 2025. So I hope so far things are clear to you, and now we will move on to how the pension scheme is formulated under this unified pension scheme. Clear? So here the 50% of the average last salary is assured as a pension return. Okay, so 50% of not my last month's salary in the case of old pension scheme model, 50% of the last 12 months average salary. Okay, so if I am going to retire next month, I will be taking the average of the last 12 months that I am going to work with average salary of, in that 50% is going to be given as a pension. Here, instead of 14%, okay, so government is willing to contribute 18.5% again. It is going to save the money that you will be contributing for your pension, right? And then employment contribution is still 10, employee contribution is still 10%. You have to remember that. It is going to be effect from 1st of April 2025. Earlier, old pension scheme granted pension for those who completed 10 years of service. Here, it is 25 years of service. But don't worry, people, those who are just, have just completed 10 years, government is paying a minimum amount of 10,000 rupees to you also as a monthly pension. Clear? Okay. Now, in addition to these things, okay, so the government is also willing to do something more by giving a family pension, that is 60% of the employee's pension after death. If the employee is by any unfortunate reasons is there, then 60% of the employee's pension fund will be given to the family member. Okay, so and then this particular the pension scheme is inflation indexed. So it is not just we will be giving you a particular amount of money every month, it will also be accounted for inflation. So you have to read something about inflation index. So, and on whose recommendations all these things were created? So it was on the recommendation of Somanathan committee. Okay, it was on the recommendation of Somanathan committee. Still, this can be a question in your prelims. That is why I am saying you. I hope this unified pension scheme model is quite clear now. So it replaced the previous, it wants to replace the previous methods of pensioning scheme because of having some problems, issues in it, which we discussed very briefly. Now I would like to, tell you to go and read this, something about what is meant by inflation indexation, and read about this pension fund regulatory authorities, because it is going to help your prelims. So I hope this article is quite clear now, and you can go and have a look at this article in today's Hindu newspaper, and please drop a message in the comment section if you are able to figure it out well. Okay, so now tell me, who regulates the or manages the national pension scheme investments? I told you it is the fund. These people are going to do that, and they are going to be regulated by whom? Pension Funds Regulatory and Development Authority. So this completes our discussion on the first article, and now I am going to take you to the second important article and also interesting article. So the answer here is any of the above. I hope you know that. Yeah. So moving on to the biology, moving on to the science and technology part for some time. Now we are going to discuss very, very important as well as interesting article related to cancer treatment. Okay, so where the main crux of the article says that a new discovery was made which is actually helpful in treating the cancer patients with respect to chemotherapy. Okay, so we all know that what is chemotherapy, radiotherapy means, right? So wherever, whatever the remedies that we take or treatments that we take, there is always a problem. And this particular discovery is very, very helpful to overcome the problem that is there in chemotherapy, and it is very efficient in controlling the cancer cells. So let's learn how it is done and what this article has really found. Clear? But before going into that, I would like to give some basics regarding what are tumor cells, what are the different types of tumor cells we have, what are the factors responsible for it, and what are the common treatments, and finally I will take you to the recent developments. So this is the agenda for today. With this we will end this session, so please stay with me for the next 10 minutes because we are going to discuss some of the very important basics that you should know so as to understand the cancer treatment development technologies or processes that you come across in everyday's newspaper. Okay, fine. So this part of the article is again important for your syllabus in GS3, awareness in the fields of science and technology, etc. And in the prelims, again it is going to be very important. So what are tumor cells? Before that, we will see how cell division works in the human body. We all know that cell division happens, okay, where the cells are getting multiplied. So this process is called as what? Cell division. So this is something which will happen every day, every time, fine. After some period of time, okay, what will happen to these cells? These cells will die and new cells will be developed again. So this process where the cells are getting dead is called as apoptosis. So in this process, the cells are getting dead after some period of time. Let me give you an example of RBC. So RBC cells will die after 120 days. So 120 days is the time span of the RBC cells, right? So this is something which is happening in our human body. But what are these tumor cells here? See, tumor cells are those cells which either grow uncontrollably, keep multiplying, okay. So even if it is keeping multiplying, that is not going to be called as a tumor cell or a problem. Why? Because we have this process of what? Cell death, right? So this is something which can take care of these grown cells to die. That will be fine. But just imagine what happens if this particular process is getting affected. What happens if this coordination of growth and death is getting affected in such a way that the cells keep growing continuously without getting death. So that can be called as a tumor cells. Clear? You can either use U or not. Okay. So what are tumor cells? Tumor cells are those cells which either continuously grow without, death. Okay. So in this coordination is getting disturbed, then the tumor cells are, there in the body. And what are the different types of tumor cells that we have? See, we have benign tumor cells and malignant tumor cells. What is this benign tumor cells? Benign tumor cells are those cells which will not spread. Okay. So if it is developed in any particular place or organ of your body, it will remain only in that place. But this malignant tumor cells are very dangerous. Why? Because it has the ability to spread to different places, starting from it, if it is occupied in the liver, if it is developed in the liver, it can get transferred, spreaded from liver to the other parts of the body nearby. Okay. So it can also, get spread to the brains, from brains to the bloods. So this is how the things get complicated when the tumor cells are malignant in nature. So these are the two basic tumor cells that you need to know for this lecture, right? Okay, so we know what is tumor cells, how it is formed, and the types of it. Now, what are the factors responsible for having cancer? We know when we have this malignant tumor cells, then that condition can be called as a cancer, even the benign, okay? But why do we have it at first place? It can be because of n number of reasons, talking about genetic conditions, talking about hereditary conditions, and the other factors which we always see in the cinema theater. Smoking causes cancer, smoking kills, right? So this has a nicotine content again that can create cancer. So these are some of the factors responsible for it. Now, leaving this factor, okay, we will talk about these two things now so as to understand this article in detail. So under the genetic factors, we say that there is a gene in our human body called as oncogene, and this oncogene is responsible for creating cancer cells, or this oncogene is responsible for creating cancers, right? Fine. So what is this heritable factor? I'll come to that again later. So in this heritable factor, we say that these type of genes can be inherited from parent to the child, okay, but then the chances are very less here. So because of having these genes getting transferred, then we will have cancer. So this is something with respect to the second point. I hope no one should have it, or we have to find out some ways. So these are some of the factors responsible for cancer. Now, we are going to come back to that oncogene in a while, but before that, let me tell you, these are the common therapies or the treatments that we follow. One is surgery if the gallbladder, okay, or if any other organ like uterus is having cancer, we can just remove it. So this is fine, okay. In chemotherapy, what we are going to do is we are going to make use of chemicals to kill the cancer cells. Similarly, in radiotherapy, we are going to make use of some radiations. So this is quite easy, but it is not as easy as it looks. Why? Because in all these things, okay, the problem is not killing the healthy cells. In surgery, we can remove the uterus, but just imagine if any other organ like kidney or liver, which is very important, is getting affected, and removing it is not going to make you live, right? And that becomes a problem. And what is happening with this chemotherapy and radiotherapy is that we are not able to exactly target the cancer cells and remove it. So that is the problem with respect to chemotherapy and radiotherapy. Otherwise, treating cancer is again going to be very easy. So we have to find mechanisms to exactly identify the cells which are cancer cells. So remember this one. And now, what are the recent developments that we have? One is gene silencing. Here I am going to talk about oncogene, okay, how it is causing cancer. See, every human body has cells, right? I hope you have heard about this term called as cell, and there will be a nucleus, okay. So inside the nucleus of the cell, what do we have? We have chromosomes. Okay, so what are these chromosomes? Basically, these chromosomes are nothing but our DNA. Okay, so what is DNA? It is a chain of nucleic acids, right? What are the nucleic acids? We have phosphate, we have sugar, plus any of the nitrogenous bases like adenine, thymine, cytosine, phosphate. Okay, so we will discuss all these things later, maybe in some other class, but just remember that it is nothing but a chain of chemicals. DNA is nothing but a chain of chemicals. Okay, so what is happening is that in this, the chemicals are arranged in such a fashion that it is going to give you a proper series, okay, but not a uniform pattern or uniform series. Just imagine it is adenine, thymine, cytosine, okay, uracil, guanine. So it simply goes, and these nitrogenous chemicals are bonded with a phosphate molecule and a sugar molecule. Okay, so this is how the chain is going to be like. A nitrogenous base, say for example adenine. I'm just giving you only one example. So nitrogenous base adenine, when combined with phosphate molecule and sugar molecule, okay, so again A will bond with T, that is thymine is another nitrogenous base, a phosphate molecule and sugar molecule. So if we have all these things linked together as a chain, that is going to be the DNA, right? So there we have some bonds. So when I am representing this diagram in this fashion, I am getting DNA like this. Okay, so basically what is happening here? Here I have DNA like this. Okay, so when, just imagine, I am going to tell you what is gene in the DNA. Imagine if this is the DNA, and if I have a particular series where, you know, I get bonds made of something of this sort. Okay, yeah. So we have thousands and thousands of such links in the chain. So if a particular arrangement is like this, where the chemicals are arranged in this fashion, where we have A, T and then U, G going on with some phosphates and sugar molecules. Okay, so if this is arranged in this way, then it is going to be called as a gene when this particular arrangement in the DNA is able to perform a specific function in the human body. Okay, so we say that this particular person is very fair, this person has very beautiful hair, and then someone will say no, it is genetic because his parents have it. Okay, so because basically some of the physical characteristics and some of the body control functions are determined by the gene. So it is the gene that is going to make a specific function for you in the human body. It is the gene that is going to produce insulin in the human body. So it is the gene that is responsible for controlling blood clot factors. It is the gene that is responsible for controlling your characters and everything dependent upon the gene. And how it is happening? So these is the sequence of the DNA. So genes can be called as the functional sequence in the DNA. If this sequence is able to do any function, okay, then that can be called as a gene. So what is gene? Gene is nothing but a functional sequence in the DNA. I'll give you a very simple example. Remember, so if this is a classroom and this is person A called as Ram, who is sitting next to Sita, okay, and then we have a person B. Balu sitting next to Chandru. So if they are seated in this arrangement, they become very studious, very attentive, and they learn and they make some functions. Then they can be called as a gene. But just imagine there is another sequence here where some other people are sitting in this order A, B, C, D, but they are not doing any function, simply chatting with each other, talking with each other, wasting time. So they will not do any function. They are doing some function. Okay. So then this R, S, B, C can be called as a gene. Okay. So this part will not be called as a gene, but then it is again a part of the DNA sequence only. So the functional sequence of the DNA can be called as what? Genes. Remember that, right? And when this particular gene is doing any function, then we know that it is responsible for that function. Say for example, producing insulin. But what happens if this gene stops working? When the cell replicates or when the cell multiplies, when cell division happens, each and every cell will get the copy of this DNA sequence. Initially we started with one cell. When this cell is getting replicated, each and every cell will have this DNA copy in it. What if while taking that copy, any of the sequence get changed? Okay, changed in such a way that we remove this thing from here, and now either some other sequence can be there, or even in this sequence if this particular chemical is not there, then this gene will not do the same function which it already did. Okay, so this is something called as genetic mutation, and once it happens, this gene will not do any function. So this is how genes get mutated, and if the mutated gene is getting transferred to the offspring, offspring is also subjected to have the genetic disease. So far I hope everything is clear. So in case if you are not able to understand any of the basics, don't worry, we will look at it later in another video. Please feel free to drop a message in the comment section. Now we learnt what is meant by gene, functional sequence in the DNA, what it is responsible for doing, any functions that it is entitled to, and what happens if it mutates during cell division. It is not going to do the function. Similarly, we are now going to talk about the oncogene. See, oncogene is the gene which is responsible for creating cancers in the human body. Why? It is because every human body has n number of genes responsible for taking care of different functions. We have proto-oncogene which is responsible for controlling the cell growth or causing the cell death. Okay, so what is this proto-oncogene responsible for? Just how the Ram, Sita, Balu, Chandra did some work in the classroom. So this particular proto-oncogene can be again represented by any sequence of chemicals. So again it is responsible for controlling the cell growth and the cell death. But if in case as we take Xerox copy in the Xerox machine, some letters will go blind, right? So in that is something which can be related to the cell division happening in the human body also. When the cell division is happening, when we are growing, when the cells are multiplying, if this particular gene is getting mutated, then the person is entitled to have cancer. Why? Because this particular gene will not work anymore. Okay, so the mutated gene, that is the oncogene, is something which will lead to cancer. So it is something which is going to disrupt the coordination between cell growth and cell death. So now under these recent developments, what we are basically trying to do is to silence this oncogene. We are trying to silence this oncogene so that we are not able to have this particular problem of it affecting the coordination. And second thing is we use nanotechnology, say for example gold, nanoplated drugs. Okay, so the drugs which we give to treat the cancer patients will be plated with gold. It is a nano plated gold. So when that is being given, it will directly go and target only the cancer cells and kill only the cancer cells. And third thing talks about stem cells transplantation. Again, we have different types of technologies to go for it, which we will take up later. So basically it is like removing the particular organ and replacing it with some other thing which is grown by using stem cells technologies. So these are the recent developments, right? Now what is the problem that we have with these recent developments and what is this article trying to talk about. See, one of the developments that I discussed with you was a chemotherapy, right? In chemotherapy, what we are doing, we are making use of the chemicals to go and kill the cancer cells. But what is the problem we had with chemotherapy? The chemical drugs that we give is also able to kill the healthy cancer cells, and it is not able to target the cancer cells. So now we have to find ways to target and kill the cancer cells, right? Fine. We will come back to this later. We will come back to the discovery later. Before that, let us understand there is something called as cell division happening, okay? That is mitosis happening in your human body. So imagine if a patient who is having cancer is going through this cell division. So now the cell is getting divided and the DNA replicates. I told you how DNA is going to get replicated. So this is something which is going to have the mutated gene or the cancer cell or whatever it is. Now, what is happening is that whenever we give any chemotherapy drug or chemical drug to go and control this particular cancer cell, what is happening is that it is not able to exactly target the cancer cells. But this new discovery, which was discussed in the article, is able to find a new target for killing the cancer cells using targeted chemotherapy to find how cancer cells develop resistance to chemotherapy. Okay, so how it is done, we are going to understand it now. See, there are enzymes in the human body, and enzymes are something which has a function just like how gene functions. Enzymes are also important for the functioning. So, there is one enzyme called as TOP1. So, this is something which is responsible for the cell division to happen. So, this is something which is causing cell division, which is causing replication and multiplication of cells, basically cells growth, right? So, if at all we have to treat a cancer patient, we are giving drugs so as to control the growth of cells, yes or no, right? So, here in this condition, if we are giving a chemical drug to the patient who is having cancer, what the drug will do? The drug will go and affect this enzyme. Why? This is something which is responsible for cell division, right? So, the drug is entitled to do what? To affect this cell division process. But then what is happening? It is affecting the healthy cells also. So, because we are not basically able to target it. So, this is something can lead to destruction of healthy cells. But the cancer cells are very brilliant here. How? The cancer cells are developing resistance to these type of drugs. Okay. So, because of that, the cancer cells, even if the cancer cell DNA is getting damaged, because of giving this medicine along with the healthy cells, the cancer cells are going to repair that DNA damage. So, this is the main issue with respect to targeted chemotherapy for cancer treatments. So, how this particular thing is possible? How the cancer cells are able to find out mechanisms to overcome the repair or damages caused by the drugs? It is because there is a protein called as TDP1. Okay, so this protein is something being used by the cancer cells to resist these type of drugs and get back to the normal conditions, right? So again, it is going to be favored by another protein called as CDP1. So these two are the very important proteins which are actually helping these cancer cells to develop resistance and fight against these drugs. Now, the study recently found out that there are these type of cells existing in the breast cancer cell. Okay, they took the breast cancer cell and studied what is actually happening. They were able to identify the key culprits, that is TDP1, CDK1, which are actually playing a crucial role in affecting the cancer sorry So, in this new discovery, the scientist has found a new target. The new target is nothing but these two things. Okay, one is TDP1 and another one is CDK1, because these two proteins should be the main target. Why? Because these two proteins play a role in helping the cancer cells from getting their damages repaired, right? It's causing the healthy cells to get die. So this is something which was found out, and they discovered that we can give inhibitors to these two proteins so that the cancer cells are not able to, recover from the damages caused by the drugs that we use for chemotherapy. So that is why this article is very important. So please go through these texts in your newspaper and find out if you are able to connect it or not, okay? And drop a message in the comment section also, because we are going to end this session shortly. So this is something, it is the crux of the recent discovery. So targeting these two proteins with some inhibitors can have a significant impact on the cancer treatment and chemotherapy. Okay, so that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching, and if you have any doubt, please feel free to drop a message in the comment section. And if you have not subscribed to UPSC Warriors, please subscribe and stay tuned for more updates. Thank you.